Andy Griffith, an enduring television star of the 1960s and 80s, died early Tuesday at his home in North Carolina and was laid to rest nearby.
Imagine waking up to the news that one of America's most beloved television legends had died. You expect days of tributes, a public memorial, thousands of grieving fans, and a funeral broadcast across the nation. Instead, before lunchtime, he was already buried. No farewell. No public service. No long procession. Not even enough time for millions of fans to realize he was gone. For years, people asked the same haunting question. What was everyone trying to hide? The answer isn't a conspiracy. It's something far more emotional and far more heartbreaking. Because behind one of Hollywood's most mysterious celebrity burials was a final wish that almost no one knew about. And once you hear it, you'll never look at Andy Griffith's final day the same way again. For more than half a century, Andy Griffith wasn't simply a television actor. To millions of Americans, he represented something that seemed to disappear from the real world years ago. Kindness, patience, decency. Whenever life felt complicated, people escaped to Mayberry, a town where problems weren't solved with violence or hatred, but with understanding. That image followed Andy throughout his entire career. Fans didn't just admire him. They trusted him. They felt like they actually knew him. Which made the morning of July 3, 2012, even harder to believe. At 86 years old, Andy Griffith passed away peacefully at his beloved home on Roanoke Island, North Carolina. But his death wasn't what shocked the country. It was everything that happened next. Within only a few hours, his body had already been buried on his private property. No cameras, no reporters, no crowds, nothing. By the time television stations began announcing his death, the burial had already happened. Think about that for a second. Most celebrity funerals take days to prepare. Family members travel across the country. Friends gather. Fans leave flowers. Television crews arrive. But in Andy Griffith's case, none of it happened. It was over almost before the world even knew it had begun. Naturally, rumors exploded. People couldn't understand why someone as famous as Andy Griffith would disappear so quickly. Was there something suspicious? Did the family know something the public didn't? Why was everything happening at record speed? The faster the burial became public knowledge, the louder those questions became. The strange part is that Andy had actually made his decision before his final night. As his health declined, he reportedly refused to spend his last hours surrounded by hospital machines. Instead, he stayed home, the place he loved, the island where he'd found peace after decades of living under the spotlight. Close friends and family gathered around him. There were no dramatic medical emergencies, no desperate race to the emergency room, no last-minute attempts to extend the inevitable. Andy wanted something much simpler. He wanted to say goodbye in the place that had always felt like home. Early the next morning, he quietly passed away. But the moment his heart stopped, another plan immediately began. One that almost nobody outside his closest circle knew existed. Only hours later, workers carefully prepared a private burial on Andy's own property. No public viewing. No elaborate ceremony. No waiting period. Everything moved with astonishing speed. Even experienced funeral professionals admitted they had rarely seen anything like it. For many Americans, the announcement of Andy Griffith's death and the news of his burial arrived almost simultaneously. Imagine discovering someone has died, only to realize they've already been laid to rest before you've even had time to process the loss. That's exactly what happened, and it created one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Soon, conspiracy theories spread across newspapers, television shows, and later across the internet. Some questioned the official cause of death. Others wondered why no public funeral had been organized. People became suspicious that the grave itself was hidden from everyone. The more private the family remained, the more public curiosity grew. Some even directed suspicion toward Andy's wife, Cindy, believing she had rushed everything for reasons no one understood. Speculation quickly replaced facts. But there was one detail almost everyone ignored. Nothing about the burial violated the law. North Carolina legally allows private burials on personal property under certain conditions. There was no legal mystery, only an emotional one. So if nothing illegal happened, why did Andy Griffith insist everything happened so quickly? To answer that, you have to understand what fame had done to him after spending more than 50 years in front of cameras. Most people dream about becoming famous. Andy Griffith eventually discovered the hidden cost. Everywhere he went, someone recognized him. Every family vacation, every restaurant, every quiet afternoon, there was always another camera waiting. Another stranger wanting one more picture. Another headline. For decades, he accepted it as part of his career. But privately, he grew tired of living inside someone else's expectations. Then he watched something happen over and over again. Whenever famous celebrities died, their funerals became public spectacles. Television helicopters circled overhead. Photographers climbed hills, fences, even trees just to capture one exclusive photograph. Grieving families lost the chance to mourn in private. Personal tragedy became entertainment. Andy hated that idea. He reportedly told trusted people long before his death. He never wanted to become part of that circus. Not even after he was gone. That wasn't fear. It was preparation. He understood exactly how celebrity culture worked, and he intended to avoid it completely. According to people close to him, Andy created a remarkably simple plan. If he passed away, he wanted to be buried immediately, before news helicopters arrived, before paparazzi could surround his home, before television trucks turned his final goodbye into breaking news. He believed his family deserved peace. Not flashing cameras. Not crowds gathering outside their home. Not strangers treating his funeral like another television event. For a man who had spent most of his life belonging to millions of people, this would become the one moment that belonged only to him. It was his final decision. His final performance. Not in front of cameras, but away from them. And what happened next proved just how deeply his neighbors respected that wish. Because the entire community quietly came together to make sure Andy Griffith received the peaceful goodbye he had spent years planning. Most people believe a celebrity's greatest legacy is the applause they leave behind. For Andy Griffith, it was the silence. By the time television stations interrupted their programming to announce his passing, everything was already over. The cameras had missed him, exactly as he intended. But protecting that final wish required something extraordinary. It required an entire community to stand together. Roanoke Island wasn't simply where Andy Griffith lived. It was home. To his neighbors, he wasn't America's legendary sheriff. He wasn't a television icon. He was simply Andy, the quiet man who enjoyed ordinary conversations, respected local traditions, and wanted to be treated like everyone else. When word quietly spread that he had passed away, the people around him understood one thing immediately. If they delayed, the media would arrive. And once the helicopters appeared overhead, everything Andy feared would become reality. According to accounts shared later, local authorities took unusual steps to help preserve the family's privacy. The goal wasn't secrecy. The goal was peace. They wanted to stop photographers from turning a family's grief into front-page entertainment. It's almost poetic when you think about it. The actor who spent years playing television's most beloved sheriff was protected in death by real people who believed he deserved the same dignity his fictional character always showed others. Instead of chaos, the island chose respect. Instead of headlines, they chose silence. And because of that decision, the photographs the tabloids wanted were never taken. The final goodbye belonged only to the people who loved him. But even the most carefully planned goodbye came with a heartbreaking cost. One that still leaves many people emotional today. Because while Andy succeeded in keeping strangers away, his incredibly fast burial also made it impossible for one important family member to arrive in time. His daughter, Dixie Griffith. By the time news reached everyone who needed to travel, the ceremony had already taken place. Imagine receiving the call that your father has passed away, only to discover that before you can even begin the journey, he's already been buried. That reality is difficult for anyone to imagine. Years later, Dixie explained that she understood exactly why her father made that decision. She knew he never wanted cameras surrounding his final moments. She knew he wanted privacy above everything else. She didn't criticize him. She didn't accuse anyone. But understanding something and living through it are two very different things. There is a unique kind of sadness in accepting someone's final wish while quietly wishing you could have had one last moment to say goodbye. It's one of the most painful chapters in this entire story, because the plan worked perfectly. But perfection sometimes comes with sacrifice. As the weeks passed, the rumors slowly began to disappear. People who had once believed there was a hidden mystery started learning the truth. There was no cover-up, no secret investigation, no suspicious circumstances. Only a man who understood fame better than almost anyone. Andy Griffith had spent decades watching celebrity funerals become public spectacles. He saw reporters chasing grieving families. He saw strangers gathering simply because someone famous had died. He saw private sorrow transformed into public entertainment. He refused to let that become his own ending. After giving millions of people unforgettable memories throughout his career, he asked for one thing in return: privacy. And remarkably, he got it. Yet another controversy would appear only a year later, this time involving a piece of Andy's personal history. For decades, he owned a modest home connected to the early years of his life and career. Many longtime friends believed that one day it might become a museum where future generations could celebrate his legacy. Instead, the home was demolished. The decision surprised many people close to him. Some felt a priceless piece of history had disappeared forever. Others defended the choice, arguing that private property remains exactly that: private. The disagreement created headlines, but it also reminded everyone of something important. When a famous person dies, the public often believes they have a voice in every decision. The family, however, lives with the consequences. No matter what they choose, someone will always disagree. Throughout all the speculation, one fact remained constant. Andy Griffith wasn't afraid of death. Friends and family consistently described him as a man whose Christian faith gave him peace long before his final day arrived. Faith wasn't something he displayed only in interviews. It shaped the way he lived, and ultimately, the way he chose to leave this world. Rather than wanting an elaborate farewell filled with speeches and television cameras, he preferred something much simpler: home, family, prayer, peace. To him, death wasn't the final chapter. It was the beginning of another journey. Perhaps that's why he felt no need for grand ceremonies. He believed the people who truly loved him already knew what mattered. By the end of his life, Andy had already experienced more loss than many people realize. He had mourned close friends. He had endured the heartbreaking death of his son years earlier. He had watched much of the generation that built his extraordinary career slowly disappear. Those experiences changed him. They taught him something that success never could. Life isn't measured by how loudly people remember you. It's measured by how peacefully you leave. And Andy Griffith wanted peace more than publicity. Even today, fans continue searching for his grave. Many expect to find a famous memorial surrounded by flowers and tourists. They never do, because the exact location has never been publicly revealed. There are no guided tours, no famous cemetery, no line of visitors waiting to take photographs. His resting place remains exactly what he wanted: private, hidden, undisturbed. In an era where almost every celebrity's grave becomes another tourist attraction, Andy Griffith somehow achieved something almost impossible. He disappeared from the spotlight forever. Ironically, if you truly want to remember Andy Griffith, you don't visit his grave. You visit the places that celebrate his life instead. The town that inspired Mayberry. The museum dedicated to his remarkable career. The festivals where generations of fans continue sharing stories about the television legend who reminded America that kindness could still solve problems. That's where his legacy lives. Not beneath a famous headstone, but inside millions of memories. And perhaps that's the greatest twist in this entire story. For years, People believed the mysterious 4-hour burial was hiding some terrible secret. But the real secret was surprisingly simple. Andy Griffith spent decades sharing his life with the world. When his final day arrived, he wanted something the world had unknowingly taken from him for over 50 years. Privacy. No conspiracy. No hidden scandal. Just one final request from a man who had already given everything he had to his audience. In the end, America kept Sheriff Andy Taylor. But Roanoke Island kept the man behind the badge. And maybe that's exactly how he always hoped the story would end. If this story changed the way you see Andy Griffith's final days, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think every celebrity deserves complete privacy after death, or do public figures owe their fans one last farewell? If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories about the lives and final chapters of Hollywood's biggest legends.